Hey guys, you're here because today you want to learn how you can make six figures your very first year in real estate, and we are going to teach you exactly how to make that happen with 5 tips plus a bonus tip, so stick around to the end so we can show you how to make 6 figures. So I got started at the age of 21. That's when I became a licensed real estate broker. That first year, I made $100,000 in my small town, Roseburg, Oregon, of only 25,000 people. The following year, we made $300,000 and have continued to increase by 6 figures each year after that so far. Many brokers and many other agents will tell you that you not to expect to do your first deal for 6 months. Don't expect any miracles, and they set the expectation that that isn't possible. And let me tell you, it is very, very possible. Even as a 21-year-old kid in a town of only 25,000 people, I was able to make 6 figures my first year in real estate. And I've heard of many other agents doing the same, and some even more. Number one is that you need to know your numbers. You're not gonna hit $100,000 in your first year on accident. You need to work backwards from what your expectation is and what your market provides, so you know exactly what numbers you need to hit to make sure that you hit that 100,000 mark your very first year in real estate. In my area, our average price point was around $200,000 at that time. Our average commission is something around 3%. So I worked off the math of $6,000 minus the cost that you split with your broker. Many brokers take 30+% of your gross commission. So it worked out to where I needed around 26 deals that first year to hit the 100,000 mark, and I had a stretch goal of 30. I actually ended up only selling 23 houses, but I did that at a much higher price point than the 200,000, to where I still ended up meeting that 6-figure mark. But it would have been a lot harder to hit that 6-figure mark if I hadn't have worked backwards from how much action and how much activity I would have to do to hit that number. Number 2, you have to have a reason. Real estate isn't easy. It's gonna test you. It's gonna stretch you to your max, and you're gonna wanna quit. I've seen plenty of people get into the business and on their first deal end up quitting the business because it's hard. There's a lot of emotions that go around. A person's purchase or sale of real estate is like the second most stressful thing that they can possibly go through in their life, next to like getting married or having a kid. I mean, this is the sale of probably their largest asset in their life. And so it's a very emotionally charged sale, and it can be hard. And if you aren't prepared for that and you don't have a reason to achieve that 100,000, then you're not gonna hit it. You have to be willing to put in that work, and you have to be prepared to put in that work, because it will test you. You will want to quit, and you have to push through to be able to hit goals that big. Number 3, you have to have a mentor. I didn't have a mentor in the traditional sense. A lot of the mentorship I had was through millionaire real estate agents and real estate investors that I would have never had access to. I just watched all of their YouTube videos. I listened to all of their podcasts. I soaked up as much as I possibly could. The brokerage I ended up choosing had the top producing agent in my county, and that was beneficial in the way that I was able to watch her and her team and how they did things, and kind of learn how they were doing it and things that I felt maybe could have been done better. So I found that to be very helpful. I also subscribed to Joshua Smith's coaching program, which was $1,000 for all of the pre-recorded, basically step-by-step how to build a business. It was a program that had a bunch of video modules that basically walked you through step-by-step how to replicate his business. I'm still an alumni member of his program, and it's very nice to be able to jump in there and take tidbits as I need them. That was a huge part of getting me started on the right track. Yes, it was $1,000, and I took it very seriously because I hadn't made any money in real estate, and you usually don't for your first couple of months, even if you got a deal in escrow your very first day. So that was a big investment for me. I took it very seriously and studied the heck out of it and implemented as much as I possibly could. But I was all in. Being at the same brokerage as the top real estate agent in my county at that time gave me a whole nother perspective. I had gone over to their house. They lived on the river. They took me on a ride in their jet boat and pulled me on the back of an inner tube with my girlfriend. And it was an experience as a 21-year-old kid that made me realize the potential of everything that I was doing and what real estate could really do for my life. And that in itself had tons of value for me my first year just getting into real estate. Number 4, know where your business is going to come from. So we just brought on a newer buyer's agent onto our team just in the last couple of weeks. He'd been in the business for 6+ months and he had one deal in escrow. And I asked him, what was his pillars of business? Where was he getting his leads? Where did he expect them to come from? And so far it had been, maybe friends, family, and people that he had just happened to run into that were, in need of a real estate agent. Now, while that may work for a deal or two a year, that's almost like icing on the cake. You cannot build a business off of your friends and family and people you run into needing your real estate services. You have to go out and you have to find people who need your services. My first year was spent on the phone. I had 2 pillars to my business, and you should come up with 2 yourself. My first pillar was online leads, and my second pillar was open houses. Now I started with online leads being like Zillow and Facebook. And I started out with $100 in Zillow. It wasn't like I was spending a whole bunch of money. I just put a little bit in so that I would have a little bit out. And then once I got any leads, I would call them every single week, maybe even twice a week. I would call the hell out of them because they were the only leads that I had. I was building a database. I also did open houses. And you may say, well, your first year, where are you getting listings to do your open houses at? Well, I didn't have the listings, but I had friends at the brokerage that did. And so I would ask them if I could hold open houses at their listings. And it was also a way for me to control the price point. A lot of the online leads were in the lower first-time home buyer price range, where I could do an open house at a $400,000 or $500,000 home and end up with 4, 5, or 6 clients that were looking to purchase homes in that price point. So I found it a very great way to kind of control the price point that you're working within. I also got listings that way too, where neighbors would come in to check out the competition, and we hit it off, and I ended up getting a good my first couple of listings that way too, that were in the 300 plus range. The way that I got leads from my open houses is I would ask people to sign in when they came in. So I had a sign-in sheet, and I would say, per seller's request, everybody please sign in upon arrival. And 99% of them would. So I would get their names and numbers and maybe even their emails, whatever they were willing to put down on the sheet of paper from what it asked for. We also did a wine raffle drawing. So it was just another way that people would write their name and phone number on a little ticket. And, a lot of times in my small town, we'd only have a handful of people come through on a good day. So I always would play the card like, hey, you have a pretty good chance if you enter that wine raffle, because there wasn't anything in there. There may have only been 1 or 2 others. And so it was another way for me to get their information, which I would then put into our database. I also could pick the best lead or what have you out of there that I had the most rapport with and deliver this bottle of wine. It was a great way to get there. I might even give out more than 1 bottle of wine if I felt like there was some really good leads. Of course, I always gave a bottle of wine regardless, because I'm an honest human being, but there's nothing wrong with giving out more than 1 bottle if you feel like you have, more than 1 lead to go actually to their house and have a sit-down meeting with them, because you usually would get that if you were delivering the bottle of wine. With online leads, a lot of the feedback that I get is, come on, Anthony, we don't want to do online leads. All of those Zillow leads are trash. Facebook leads are trash. Nobody even wants to buy anything. Now, while that is kind of true, you got to think of it as a numbers game. Maybe 1 in 10 of them are actually going to do something, and 1 in 10 of them on average is going to do something within 6 months. So I have leads now that I'm in my 4th year in real estate. I have leads that I'm still closing today that I talked to maybe my first couple of months in real estate. It's a long-term game, and if you plan on being in real estate for a significant period of time, not every lead is going to pop today, but that's what is going to build your lead flow down the road. Everybody you talk to in January isn't going to buy in February, but you have a good chance of closing them by the end of the year, which is going to help you make for a better year. Now between my open house leads and my online leads, I was building a database. And in those first few months especially, I mean, even in that first year, maybe I only had like 300 or 400 people in my database by the end of it, but I was consistently adding new people to my database every week, and I was calling the shit out of them until they either died or told me that they to f off. There was no in between. And many of these people I made friends with. I would still say to this day, my number one thing that I tell everybody on my team is that whenever we call, we want to make friends with them. Act like it's a friend that you haven't talked to since middle school, or talk to them like they're your own grandma. I mean, you want to have a relationship with your clients. That is how they're going to choose to do business with you. Especially if you're 21 years old like I was. I didn't really have a leg up on the competition. The only thing that I did have was the fact I had time, and I was willing to give that level of attention and that level of service because I didn't have anything else going on. So they consistently heard from me. So pick out your 2 lead sources and go all in on those. You can get widespread, trying to come up with different things: open houses, online leads, cold calling, mailing. You start to get spread too thin, and you can't put the amount of focus that's necessary into the lead sources to actually get anything out of them. Number 5, you need to act the part. My very first day in real estate, I pretended to be a real estate agent. That's what you have to do. If you are just beginning, you have to act the part. That's how you become a top producing real estate broker, is you act like a top producing real estate broker. If you want to be fit and in shape, you act like a fit and in shape person does. What do? They work out and they eat right. What does a top producing real estate broker do? Well, they dress nice, they look good, and they call all their clients, and I don't know, they do cool shit like top producing real estate agents do. When I got started as a 21-year-old kid, I drove a 20-year-old Honda Civic that was all beat up. I didn't really have any fitted clothes or anything. So I borrowed my girlfriend's car because it was newer than mine, and I went out and I bought clothes that made me hopefully look more mature. I mean, look at 21-year-old little Anthony. Would you want to buy a house from him? I mean, at least he was wearing a tie. He did all right. But if he would have been wearing a snapback and like a flannel and some Vans and skinny jeans, I don't know. I don't think that anybody would have bought from him. But because he presented himself well and he acted like a top producing real estate broker, he became a top producing real estate broker. To this day, I still go to listing appointments where people end up saying, "We were so impressed with the fact that you came in a suit and how professional you were and everything." And so I think to this day, if I didn't hold myself to the standard that I do, I don't know that I would do near the level of business that I do. But people know that I take my career seriously because I do, and I dress like it and I act like it. So remember, if you want to be a top producing real estate broker, you have to act the part. And lastly, the most important thing of all, number 6, that wasn't even included in the top 5, is self-development. In the way that I did, the most important thing is self-development. Now, from the beginning, I developed a habit of studying. You have to study. You have to develop yourself. I spent every day reading audiobooks and listening to podcasts, and I still do that to this day, averaging 2+ hours. And you may say, how in the hell do you have time to study for 2+ hours a day self-development? Well, mainly audiobooks and podcasts. So like, I wake up in the morning and I'll go out in my garage to my home gym and work out, and for that 30 to 45 minutes I'll have headphones on and I'll be listening to an Audible book or listening to my favorite podcast. Then I go inside and I'm getting ready, and I have a little Bluetooth speaker that I have in the bathroom, and I turn that on, and while I'm brushing my teeth and taking my shower and doing my hair and getting dressed, for that whole half hour plus, I'm still listening to an audiobook or a podcast while I'm eating breakfast, and then the whole drive to the office. That whole time I'm studying. And then, I do have 2 agents below me now that do a lot of the buyer appointments, but I'm still on appointments for a good portion of my day. And with that, I may have an hour plus of drive time throughout my day. Again, I'm not listening to the radio, I'm not listening to music, I'm listening to those podcasts, I'm listening to audiobooks, and I'm studying. On the way home, I do the same thing. And by then, you're gonna have 2+ hours. Some days I have appointments that are like an hour away, and I actually get excited because I'm like, that's 2 extra hours of books and podcasts that I get to listen to. And whenever I'm talking to people that are just getting into the business, that's always one of the things that I make sure to put in their head as something that is extremely important, because I really don't think I would be where I'm at today if I hadn't have followed all those guys on YouTube and implemented their things, if I hadn't have listened to all those podcasts, if I hadn't have read all those audiobooks, hours and hours, days and days, months and months of my life now over the course of time, there's no way in heck I would be where I'm at today. And last tips of advice, remember, real estate is a business. This isn't a job. You don't get a salary, a $100,000 salary. That's kind of misleading because you only get paid what you produce. You're paid on commissions. So if you don't sell anything, you don't make any money. And so if you don't have a clear plan of how to make this money, you're not gonna make it. You have to go out there, you have to do these 5+1 things every single day so that you can generate a living, a business, a worthwhile business, a business worth putting all of your time and effort into. Now, if you guys have any questions along the way, need any help through anything, as of right now, I'm just giving my advice out for free, so feel free to comment, shoot me a message, subscribe, comment, like, and I will see you guys on the next one.